All right, guys, welcome to the Conviction Fiction, where we explore the untold stories behind the criminal justice system. Now, in today's episode, we're diving into a crucial yet often overlooked topic, and that's post-incarceration PTSD. Studies have shown that as many as 1 in 3 formerly incarcerated individuals experience symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder after their release. The traumatic environment of prison, including violence, isolation, and a lack of personal agency, can have long lasting effects. In fact, 85% of formerly incarcerated people report experiencing emotional distress and mental health challenges, which can persist for years after reentry into society. Now, post incarceration PTSD can manifest in many forms, such as anxiety, depression, hypervigilance, and even difficulty trusting others. Yet the discussion around this condition is often overshadowed by the struggles of reintegration, like finding a job or housing. The mental toll, however, is just as real, and addressing it is essential for the full rehabilitation of formerly incarcerated individuals. So today we'll be hearing personal stories, expert insights, and discussing the steps society can take to provide better support for those who have been through the system. All right, let's start by breaking down the stigma around post incarceration PTSD. Now, after serving 15 years plus, Eric has returned to society and built a remarkable life. And he's been able to kindly grace our studio today again. Welcome, Eric. How's it going?
All is well. All is well. Glad to be here.
All right, awesome. Glad for you to be here, man. So we're going to talk about PTSD. Now, could you start by telling us a bit about your background and what led you to your focus on whether you had PTSD or not?
Doing my re-entry back into society, uh, there were certain things like anxiety. I guess coming out of a high stress environment, coming back, into society, the rules change. Like I know that there's penitentiary codes and penitentiary rules, and for somebody who didn't want to put himself in a situation to go back, I developed some kind of, I would say, a healthy paranoia, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, that does.
With people, places, and things, not putting myself in certain situations. Uh, and so the anxiety of, being away for so long and coming back and being in crowds. When you locked up for so long, you come back out, everything's new. Trees, sitting on furniture, small thing about sitting on furniture. Uh, Look
Yeah.
here, even my first time being in a house by myself after being surrounded by people for so long, created, um, you know, uh, I tell you what, I wouldn't say an anxiety attack or anything, but it was a newness, and it was something that I had to be when I coming back in the reentry process. I had to be reacclimated to functioning out here. Even such as getting back in the car driving for the first time. After about a month after I was out, I was hitting the road traveling on 65 headed to Birmingham to go to school. Those things. So that's when I kind of noticed, hey, label your breathing, slow it down a little bit. You're just getting a little anxious here. And so it wasn't too long after that I started reading up on PTSD.
Okay. Right now, studies show that there are an estimated 19 to 31% of formerly incarcerated individuals who experience PTSD after their release, much like the things that you were just describing there, having anxiety. I mean, just common stuff that we take for granted, like sitting on the couch. But why do you think that PTSD is so prevalent post incarceration and not so much while you are in? Is it different?
Yes, I would definitely say it's different. You in a high stress environment. a high stress environment with a lot of other people in situations that you may not control, that may not have anything to do with you. You develop this certain sense of trouble. I know you can understand what I'm saying. You can feel it when it's about to go down.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
just seeing people stabbed, beat. I seen a dude stabbed in the neck, mob ringer, not almost killed. Many stabbings. Uh, and so being in them environments, you never know. It's high stressful. And when I talked about that healthy paranoia, you always got to watch your surroundings. Yeah, I say, one of the difference out here is you learn to really read people because you can find in a small space with a lot of people, and you develop this sense of really reading people, and you can feel the drama before the drama even happens.
I agree. You could definitely feel a difference when you are there, and that's what I wanted to talk about a little bit here. Wherein, you become accustomed to that stressful environment. I think Eleanor Roosevelt said it best: "In a world full of chaos, it's all too easy to make peace with it. You are surrounded by it all the time. You just become commonplace." I can remember when I was there, they would, lock down the yard or and do all at first, when I first I'm gonna get a little personal here. When I the first few years, you in there and you hear those stories about people being stabbed or people being raped and all that kind of stuff. So there is, like you said, a healthy fear wherein you want to protect yourself. So I can
Right.
remember the first time I seen someone get stabbed or whatever, and I was in shock. I was like, "Oh, what the? Where am I at?" I'm thrown by just the sight of somebody that close being killed. Now, when you're in the street and when you're on um, drugs or alcohol and you're committing crimes, I mean, there's a certain amount of numbness that you have. But when you're sober and you are, I don't know if you miss family or trying to get home and you start seeing this kind of stuff, it was shocking to me at first. However, I would say by year 2 or 3, it wasn't that shocking anymore. You know, it was more so, man, they gonna lock down the yard again now. Now we're not gonna be able to go outside, or now they're gonna lock us in the dorms all day. Man, why they had to go do that when before it was more of fear, if that makes sense.
Right.
You
It
know.
comes a unhealthy norm.
Yep, yep. So that brings me back to my second question for you, and is could you describe like the most common symptoms of post incarceration PTSD that you have seen in individuals, even probably within yourself?
Um, I guess I would say a lot of some antisocial behavior would really be one.
Okay.
Uh, you can see signs of depression.
Hmm.
Uh, a lot of times we depressed and maybe not know why. Once you coming from one environment to another, trying to overcome the stigmas and do what you got to do. And there's a lot of relearning because we creatures of habit. That creatures of habit when we come out. Let me give you a case and example. Uh, this was not the right way to go about the situation. My first job, I told you about going to this temp service. And so as I'm working 2 weeks, I go in the bathrooms. I'm in what they call the ingredient room. So I had some ingredients on me. So I'm washing my face, and I hear this white guy say, he didn't come in here to do that, as if I was loafing in the bathroom. And that actually made me mad, all the way to the point that I said, when I see him again, I'm going to check him. Now, that's prison thinking. So the same guy, I'm walking down the hall and I see him and I said, that's him. So when I see him and I walk up to him, he said, hey, you Eric? I'm like, yeah, I'm Eric. What's up? And he said, hey, I'm the plant manager, man. I like what you're doing. He
You about
said,
to take the man.
no doubt.
Oh
Listen,
my
true story. Listen, I actually went home mad. Now, here's the point. I had to really analyze. Why did that make you so upset?
Mhm.
You know, but them habits of somebody checking you, something so small, and you in a different environment now. And this guy was like, look, I mean, he could see the look at my face. Hey, go home with pay today. We're paying you today. We gave $5,000 and bought your contract out with the temp service and come in tomorrow for orientation. And I'm sitting here thinking, dummy, you could have just ruined a job thinking in these prison politics. And, you know, and that let me know that, look, my thinking had to really change, because even in prison, I wasn't what they call a gator or troublemaker. I would handle my own if it was
Right.
presented to me.
Right.
Uh, but that situation there, little bitty things. You ask what I see in others, um, getting out, trying to, being lost in identity, still trying to live the prison identity. One of the things about that they told me about when you get out of prison, and I witnessed it myself, was whatever age you leave at, life stops. When you come back out, you can sometimes, when you get back out, those same thinking patterns that you left the streets on, you can exhibit that same place. It's just like somebody hit play again and you're in the same environment. And
Like you're basically in a twilight zone where basically you
right,
get locked up, say, I don't know, 25. When you get out after doing 15 years, you're still
right,
25
right,
socially. Right.
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 And
So
if you don't, go ahead, go
mhm.
ahead.
All right, so that's why I was asking about the most common symptoms that you saw, and it's like that um, almost reactive or carnal. Like, you are very reactive when it comes to um, notions of disrespect, right?
Right,
You feel a certain way when somebody looks at you a certain way. One of the most common things I face for me was nightmares or being unable to sleep sometimes at night because it's peaceful where I'm at in my bedroom, right? Bedroom, and got a wife, and the house is quiet, and my mind is actually at peace when before I would hear banging on the bars all the time, or I would
yeah,
hear people yelling all the time, or um, keys, every so often. You remember, that count time, you ever
right.
been asleep and the count time, you hear people just walk by you with keys on, what I mean? So um, I think that piece was, and sometimes still can be, something that I don't fully understand. I've been out for a long time, bro. I've been out for over 10 years, but I still have nightmares when it regards to the prison environment. And it is not so much of the nightmares about what went on in there. It's like nightmares that I'm put back for whatever reason. So I do stuff. If they were trying to make sure that I didn't come back, I mean, I took something with me that kind of changed my mental state, much like we were talking about now with the PTSD, that it actually changes your mental makeup.
Yes, I agree. Those nightmares. It's not being in prison, like I'm saying, is having to go back. Those were the ones that I dealt with, but I didn't deal with them. Maybe the first 3, 4 years out. They came later.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
and matter of fact, I had one a couple weeks ago, and man, I was just so elated that it was just a dream when I woke
Yeah.
up.
And it's crazy because there's evidence that exposure to violence, overcrowding, and solitary confinement in prisons contributes to PTSD. There are many key factors in a prison environment that can lead to this trauma. We talked about the violence that you are around. We talked about the various sounds that you may hear when you're normally asleep. These are things that you hear, and if you just think, hearing that over and over constantly all the time and seeing all of this type of behavior, you come out into a civil society, and it's like, it's too quiet in here, or why is that,
Right.
like, why is that man looking at me like that? Is he questioning who I am, or what's going on now? The research suggests that effects of solitary confinement can be devastating, especially going in the hole. Um, there's studies that say that up to 28% of those prisoners who experience the solitary confinement develop PTSD. And that's if you're, I mean, I've been in lockup a couple of times for various reasons. It wasn't, well, to the normal people. For you guys out there listening, it might be crazy, but I did go to lockup a couple of
Right.
times. And it was never, for me, going to lockup, it was like, why y'all locking me up? I'm doing the right thing by acting the way that I'm doing or reflecting, because the whole concept of what's dangerous and what is not dangerous definitely was altered within my brain. Now, there's last one. It's also been reported that 50% of incarcerated individuals um have a diagnosed mental health condition. Right? They say that 50% of people that have been locked up have a legally a mental health condition, and PTSD often exacerbates existing issues. So, how do you think that affects the reintegration into society after release if you have PTSD and possibly some other mental health issue?
I'm in agreement with that statement. I don't think there are any perfect people. I think all of us exhibit some trait of mental health, whether it be antisocial or when you hear those terms, mental health, everybody goes to like people are crazy. No, it doesn't mean that. I don't believe there's any perfect people. A lot of people that wind up going to prison usually come out of stressful homes or environments before they even get to prison.
Right.
Uh, Listen, and like I know, them county jails is just as worse as prison.
Hmm.
You know,
Probably worse. Probably worse.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, without you just look at how it is out here. Mental health is on the rise, but the help that people really need to get, whether it be in prison or out on the streets, is far and few. You know, it's not a lot of places. Around my area. I don't know about Atlanta, but it's a lot. Mental health is really rising, and so a lot of those people, rather than get them the help they need, a lot of them they send to prison. People can get the help they need. Uh,
Hmm.
you know, uh, as opposed to going in the prison system, a lot of lives will be changed. But that's a whole nother story because number one commodity in the world ain't corn, wheat. It's the prison system, and so
Right. Right.
right,
Uh,
and so it's easier to incarcerate than it is to try to rehabilitate.
yeah, and that's back in the day, for we may have a show on the history of prisons at some point, but that's what it basically was. Prisons were just a place where people would be thrown just to get rid of them, whether
Hmm.
they committed a crime or they felt like they couldn't learn or anything like that. It was considered more of a mental institution than anything. And it wasn't until some prison reform advocates back in the early 1920s that they started saying, well, hey, there are people too. I mean, prison conditions over time have gotten better, but as you know, I mean, it's not the most humane place to live. You got thousands and thousands of men living in one little compound, women included, living in a compound. And I can only imagine how the onset of COVID-19 back in 2020, excuse me, how that affected the prison population. Because I mean, you're basically quarantined. The world was
Right.
quarantined. So with those prisoners that were there, and even the guards that were in and out of society, I mean, I guess we gotta find somebody that was locked up. If you were in the feds or if you were in a state prison during COVID, hey, be sure to hit us, Alana. Did you guys have to wear a mask like in prison, or I never thought of it until we got on this, but definitely something that I'd be interested in knowing. Now, You did make mention of, seeking help, being able to find those adequate resources. But many former inmates do not seek mental health treatment due to the stigma or the lack of access of those resources. What is the most effective way to encourage treatment for PTSD after release?
Well, identifying the triggers, identifying if there's anxiety, identifying the triggers that lead to anxiety. That was something that I had to really, you know, work through and understand. Same time, switch my mind up. I had to elevate my mind, understand I'm in a different atmosphere. Some small people play out here. When I said people play, some of the things that people play out here with, and that can get you in a lot of trouble. And so that was a time, one, choosing my crowd, man, choosing my circle out here. Uh, One, going to school was very beneficial. I stayed busy. But at the same time, after teaching them programs for 3 years, I still continued to use a lot of those things that I learned, identifying, my triggers. At the same time, once I identified them, figuring out a plan for me to be able to be successful and not put myself in situation to have them. And so, as time went on, some of the small things I talked about before, being acclimated to being around furniture in a home or by yourself, being in that dorm with 100 people at a time, and then here you are, and everything is peace and quiet, what you really desired to have, and you wasn't enjoying it, or even the dreams. Uh, and I also had opportunity to talk to some people. As I mentioned earlier, 6 months after I got out, I was diagnosed with cancer. And
Mm-hmm.
so going through the cancer treatment, uh, the oncology center I went to, they had everything from dietitian to deal with your food to dealing with your mental state. They had counselors and people to talk to. So I had some people early on within right after that 6 month period to really kind of help
Mm-hmm.
identify. One, they try to throw you on meds. I'm not a pill person. I don't like to be controlled like that. And so
Okay.
there was some other measures, healthy breathing, like I was saying, identifying your triggers and, um, don't put yourself in certain situations. So, as time went on, things got better. Uh, but I guess staying busy, working on myself and staying busy helped me in my reentry as far as
Oh,
post-traumatic stress. But I can tell you that it's still a part of my life today, and I've been out 18 years.
okay. Well, I know for me, we try to get as up close and personal because we have been through those prison hallways and thoroughways and byways, and we were able to live and come out on the other side and try to help others that are going to be released. I think I said on the last show, or maybe a show before that, but it was almost 1.8 million people locked up in the United States right now, whether it's in prisons, federal owned prisons, state owned prisons, and those prison industrial complexes, like those what is CCAs and all these private prisons. 1.8 million people. That's a small city, right? A pretty nice sized city to be exact, of people that are just tucked away in the bellies of, I want to say, America, because they're here, but we got to take care of them as a taxpayer. All the things that we pay in taxes, the government uses a portion of that to take care of those
Right.
prisons. And I don't think that the mental health aspect of it has really been addressed as much. Now, personally, I was um, deeply affected by PTSD when I first got home because I'm telling you, when I was released, and just getting in that car ride home, right? That was way different. I I sat in the front seat of the car. Of course I ain't drive. Man, wasn't no way I was gonna drive anything after serving all that time. But I rode in the front seat, and it was definitely an experience that I will never forget. Because not only was I thought this person, my sister, matter of fact, shout out to my sister, but I thought she was driving way too fast, and it wasn't so much of the fear of wrecking. It was like she needed to slow down so I could see some of this stuff. I ain't seen none of this stuff. You know what I'm saying? Look, what kind of car is that? I'm turning around looking. There's a restaurant, and there were so many opportunities that I took for granted, and that
Right.
basically,
Right.
I don't like to say that the state or the penal system stripped them from me. It's my choice. There's always been that in the forefront of this podcast. Like, we made terrible decisions, right?
Right.
Um, Now, I did talk to someone today, and I want to put the listeners and you up on this. I was talking to Michael Holder today. He sent out um, a social media message, and we'll probably get him on the show. But Michael Holder, think about this. I don't know if you ever heard of the story. Michael Holder is from Saginaw, Michigan, and back in 2001, he was the first inmate. I'm sorry, the first resident of his state, Michigan, that was sent to jail because he knowingly had sex with a woman, but withheld that he had HIV. So
Mm.
they locked him up and charged him with almost attempted murder. He did like 20 years, and he reached out to me on my little podcast. I'm like, okay. He's like, I want to be on the podcast, man, because they trying to silence me, and because I'm trying to get some money now, because like I don't see how they held me that long. He's still living. Like, I think he told me, I got some notes. He was like maybe um almost 60 years old. He still got HIV. But they locked him up back then in
Wow.
2001. And he reached out to me, and it was amazing because I was like, I just want to do a show on PTSD. I can't imagine, having HIV or something like that and being locked up and released. Um, I'm worried about my health first of all. Now I'm locked up, and I'm stripped away from my family, my friends, and whatnot, and I got a crime for having HIV. Um,
Right.
that was interesting, and we definitely want to get Mike. If you're listening, you still have that open invitation to be on the show. But in terms of treatment, back to PTSD. In terms of treatment, what are some of the most therapeutic or most effective therapeutic approaches for individuals dealing with PTSD? I mean, is it medication or like therapy? What do you think, Eric?
For me, I'm gonna say this because when I left, I married the social worker that was at the prison that I was at, and so she had all this information put
Hold up,
down
hold
about
up,
health.
hold up. Wait,
Yeah.
wait, 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 wait. Slow down. You mean to tell me you married a social worker from prison?
Yeah, at the time.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
hold on. Let me hold on. Stop. Back this up. Back it up. So I remember a story. I ain't gonna get too personal because we'll talk
That's
offline
in the
about that.
past. That's right.
The, the girl with the glasses,
The girl with the
she was a
glass.
glass,
Yeah.
um, kind of pear built.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
married to her? Are you married to her now?
No, sir. Not
Oh,
at
okay.
all.
Okay. Because I,
So,
I I think I remember. But we'll talk
so
about that often, bro.
right.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is that was a lot of information that she had already had laid out. For me,
Hmm.
exercise, me push-ups may sound crazy. When I get when I first got out, man, I'm talking about first got out. When those anxiety attacks come on, I'm dropping down doing 50, 100 push-ups. May sound crazy, but that helped release some of the stress.
Okay.
Um, to some of those anxiety, some of that anxiety that I had.
Yeah. For me, I think exercise, that's very important. Another thing, what do you think about like support groups and talking? Does that help alleviate?
You know what? I'm all for support groups. I think we need to have more of that. That's why I think what you're doing is very healthy, to change the narrative and also to just bring out some conversations that need to be talked about. This very subject, PTSD, needs to be talked about. It doesn't make one less than to say he suffers from PTSD, or it may help one who's dealing with some things and don't even know that it is PTSD. You know, to live in those in high stress environments, it does have an effect on you. Uh, I should say it can, and I would say it did me. But yeah, exercise, self help groups. Everybody needs somebody to talk to. I'm a firm believer in counseling. You know, look,
Yeah.
I'm a big pusher for to get with somebody healthy to be able to be honest with you and you be honest with them. That is
Yeah.
that is very very important.
Vitally important. And that was a 2022 report that I was reading right before I was getting ready for this show, that noted that 80% of the inmates with mental health disorders don't receive the adequate care that they should while they're in prison. I can attest to that because I didn't even suffer from mental health, but I knew people that, they were comfortable with their anxiety. They were able to actually, talk to someone, become diagnosed with anxiety, or the what's the other big one that was in there? But most times in prison they just dope you up. They just dope
Yeah,
you up. They give you a bunch of dope. And quiet is kept. If you knew the right person, they would oftentimes hide those pills, because I remember one dude, his name was, I'm gonna say his name was Antonio, right? And so Antonio, he actually took I think it was a anxiety pill or something. I forgot what's the most common, what was it called? Thorazine. Was it
Thorazine.
Thorazine?
Yeah,
Thorazine. Right. And I can remember talking to him, and we were in one of those self-help groups that we went to in order to find out about ourselves, and in order to get some good graces in the eyes of the parole board. All right. So he said that stuff made him feel horrible, had him dragging, you know. And so he would try to skip it, but whenever he skipped his medication, they would lock him up. They would lock him up. Like, well, you're not gonna take the medication, we're gonna lock you. I'm not. He was that, in their eyes, quote unquote, dangerous. If he didn't have the medicine, where he would either harm himself or harm others within the prison. So it was another one. What's the pill they used to give those guys at the pill call line? It was something that they gave them, and they used to come down and try to sell it. It was like a relaxer. I don't, not the lithium. It was some pill they were just giving them, and
Seroquel.
that's what it was. They would come and sell that stuff. They're like, hey, they'll put it in their mouth, hide it, like they took it, and then come to the dorm and sell it. Like, I got one of the pills for you. And people, the addicts, because trust and believe, guys, there are addicts in prison. I would say, and this is just my numbers, and that's only because I've been there. Eric, you might can help me with the stats right here, but I'm just gonna tell you, I'm gonna say about a good 65-75% of the inmate population are like drug addicts.
Hey,
They're addicts.
listen. My
I mean,
first check this out. When I first got in prison, I had did a few months in the county jail, so I'm in prison. So I'm moving around in the dorm, and this smell, right? And this smell was so distinct, and I'm like, man, what is that smell? I know that smell.
mm.
And I'm really, this smell was just like, and I'm really saying my smell. It was crack, man. Listen.
In the
And
prison,
listen, and I'm like, they smoking crack in here. Look,
right? All the way turned up, all the way turned
but
up.
but but you hit on something real serious. The way they do those mental health people, man, with them shots.
Mhm.
I'm talking about all laid out on the sidewalk and out of it. And I didn't seen some guys that were from my hometown that I knew just wanted to get high. I wouldn't say they didn't have a mental problem. I would just say that it wasn't that bad. They wasn't violent in prison or any of that. But it changed their life, man. And I hate they even went that route because some of them still hadn't recovered.
Yeah.
You know, you mentioned 1.8 people in the prison system. I'm gonna give you a stat. From 1890 to 1990, America got its first prison, first million people in prison. 100 years, 1890 to 1990. But from 1990 to 2000, they got their next million. So they did in
Wow.
10 years in getting a million prisoners.
Mhm.
And that was a time of, our generation, that was a time of, hey, when they flood the streets with drugs and easy access guns and a whole lot of other things, which I'm not blaming other people. I did
Right.
what I did. My situation is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
However, what I am saying is that what people think really go on in there with mental health, they just giving you some pills, and
Mm-hmm.
that's just another paycheck from a different place in the government for as
Yeah.
many as they can be able to label mental health. And what they care about your life ain't nothing. Uh, we taught classes, we were around the treatments,
Mm-hmm.
and we thank God for Miss Murdoch. But at the same time, some of those people, those me tried when I got ready to go for parole, man, I was signing up for every program. And
Mm-hmm.
so some of the information was informative, but some of the people that I think really needed that one-on-one, those things really wasn't available. Even you think about the reentry program before you leave, it touched
Mm-hmm.
on a few. It touched on a few, places. I think they should get some people who have reentered into society and been there for a while to come in and teach those classes
Yeah.
because
I agree.
it's a shell shock when you get out. And the
Man,
little information.
I agree. I agree. I think that, and that's what I was. I had this notion today, like, because I'm here in Atlanta, and it's pretty much across the states right now. Most of the young people that we see out here committing these crimes do not have any earthly idea what they're getting into when they're signing up to join a gang or rob a store or sell drugs or kill somebody to be a part of a group or to be around someone. They don't even know what they're getting into.
No,
And out of those people that are incarcerated, we talked about 1.8 million people being locked up today in the United States of America. Right now, 1.8 million. That's the size of Canton, Ohio, right?
wow,
Um, that's half of Atlanta, right? Just locked up away in a prison. And those people are leaving behind family members, they're leaving behind children, mothers, and all that stuff. But there was a study back in 2022, that same study I was just mentioning, they said that over 70% of the people that are locked up have reported some type of traumatic experience prior to them being locked up. So it was
right.
some event that pretty much triggered them, and they go to jail, and it's left untreated. It's left untreated, right?
I
So
believe that.
with the ability of the states and the feds to lock people up, why isn't there some, like, we talk about reentry a lot. Um, what about pre-entry? We need something to, like, a diversion program or more diversion programs. Because shout out to the diversion programs. There's one here in Atlanta. It's called Next Level Boys Academy. I want to shout out to the founder, Mr. Gary Davis, who I've worked closely with here in Atlanta. Haven't worked as much, David, and I know you're pretty mad at me about that. But just those diversion programs to stop these young men and young women from going to jail. Because trust and believe you me, if you go into a prison at, say, 19 or 20, you're not going to come out um, all the way wrapped tight. I'm just saying. You're not going to be
Yeah,
wrapped. you'll be on here talking about the effects of PTSD and how your whole life was thrown away. So, as someone that works closely with this issue, um, I guess what's the one thing you'd like the public to understand about the challenges of post-incarceration PTSD? What's like, what would you tell the public about PTSD?
I guess if I would say anything, if you have a family member uh, who's been incarcerated, who's reentering into society, um, support. Do as much reading as you can on the reentry process, not just post-traumatic stress disorder, but the whole reentry process. Because one person is walking out of one world into another world, and as opposed to dealing with new norms, we have to create new norms when we get out here. Like you were saying, when you got out and riding in the car, and some of the things that people, seem to just take for granted every day. When you're away from those things, be mindful that this is not his normal now, and he
Right.
has to have an adjustment period. At the
Yeah.
same time, uh, counseling, man, I'm big on counseling. I'm big on counseling. Everybody needs somebody to talk to get get the right information, get the help you need.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for me, I like what you said about that diversion program, but I'm here in the state of Alabama. They shut down a lot of the mental institutions here. People are starting up group homes. Some of the people that I know that are starting up group homes that I know personally, I don't know if they have counseling in them. I just know that mental health is on the rise. You're talking about COVID. You got a whole generation. Just think about it. COVID affected everybody in a way uh, that brought norms that we didn't even think would be possible. And so, you know, getting self-help groups in communities, getting self-help groups in churches and civic organizations to be able to help the community, because the system doesn't mind. Listen here, you're a body, and once you're a body in there, you're a check. All these private prisons. I don't know if you know, some county, Marengo, some county filed a lawsuit against prison system saying that they promised to fill the prison up, and they filed a lawsuit because they didn't. So that was just saying, hey, we got to get more people in here. Uh,
Right.
you know, and the other thing is, in Alabama, we just built the most expensive prison in the United States. A lot of the laws had changed. It used to be vagrancy, it used to be class E. Now it's a felony. They're creating the laws now to fill these prisons up. And so, if we can understand that mental health is a big issue, then our communities, our churches, our civic organizations need to create a platform where people feel at ease to be able to talk about some of these things and maybe get others involved to be able to address some of these issues. Uh, Again, you asked me about the people that's coming home. Yeah, listen, allow an adjustment period, but create a great support system where that person is able to speak freely about where they are, what they're going through, and where they at.
Okay. All right. That's some very powerful stuff. Like for me, um, personally, I had a support system around me. But even with that, over time, I was able to start talking about some of the experiences, some of the things that I've seen, some of the ideas I had. Because I'm just gonna be honest, before I was, um, so far in my prison stint, I was like scared, bro. I was definitely scared. It was not so much that I was big and bad, but I put up the aura to protect myself. I had, it was like creating another person within myself to be. I got to be fast moving. I got to be able to keep these folks up off me. And um for me, dealing with the fact that I wanted to be home, that I had left two daughters at home, that I left my mom, my parents, I left a wife at home. Like I said, a lot of people didn't, everybody's situation is a little bit different, right? I knew guys that were basically living a life of crime their whole. There was their safe haven. This is where they needed to be. It was either come here or probably end up being shot or killed out there. because this was a lifestyle.
Right.
And that's the thing when we are talking about, especially young black men. We're not a racial show, but the statistics prove that young black men are locked up at a far more quicker rate than any other race that's out
Right.
there. And a lot of these black boys are suffering from traumatic things that are happening or have happened in their life, and that's why they
Before they go to
commit
prison.
crime. That's why they end up going to prison, right? Because
Right.
they have not dealt with those traumatic things. Like growing up without a dad, right? Growing up without a dad. I know people with dads, they think that's not really a big of a deal. But if you got somebody at your games, someone to encourage you, someone to let you know, hey, look, this is how you're gonna deal with girls and all this stuff, instead of having a mama that may totally hate your dad because he walked out on you and he's constantly bombarding your head. Well, they ain't shit. Right? Men ain't shit. You just like your daddy. Just like this. So there's no positive reinforcement from a male figure for someone that grows up without a father. And I had a
You
guy on
know,
the show. I don't know if you. I'm really quick. I don't know if you saw the show, the bonus episode I had with Nolan. He grew up without his dad. His dad was in and out of the prisons and stuff, and he basically said he became numb to the fact. He would see other kids with it turned him off from sports. It turned him completely off of sports because other kids would have their fathers there encouraging them, telling them, "Hey, run a little harder. You can do it." And he was like, "Look at this." He thought they were showing out, you know, and he held that for a long time. You know what I mean? You got a little feedback on your mic. No,
boy,
I heard a
can you
little
hear me now?
feedback. Yeah, I can hear you. It's like a thumping, something. It's
Yeah.
good. All right, cool.
Okay. We compartmentalize a lot of things, and a
Hmm.
lot of times in compartmentalizing things, we think that we think by compartmentalizing we don't have to deal with them. And the more you store, the more you store, the more you store, the more it becomes. And we don't deal with those things in a positive way, and we become numb to them. I can understand what the young fellow was really talking about. My situation may not have been having a father um, per se incarcerated, but growing up, I learned to compartmentalize things. When I got locked up, I learned to compartmentalize things. Simple things, being away from family, not being there for the kid's birthday,
Hmm.
not being there for Mother's Day, uh, Christmas. I remember I wanted to sleep all day Christmas Day, listen in, wake up, and just finally get this over with. It was one of the most depressing times. Uh,
Hmm.
my brother passed away, and I couldn't go to the funeral. I couldn't mourn. I couldn't grieve with my family. And I basically raised my younger brother. I'm the oldest of three. And so I had to compartmentalize to keep moving, to hold on to what I perceived to be sanity at that time. And
Hmm.
a lot of that wears down on you emotionally because you just toting. You're not dealing with the issue, you're just compartmentalizing it. And so when you get out here, um, you know, all of that is a big part of PTSD if you don't find the way to release it and not compartmentalize it, but to, meet life on life's terms, to make peace with it, to have acceptance about it. As black men, we compartmentalize everything. We suffer in silence out here, you
Hmm.
know, uh, trying to be the foundation for which everybody else stands on. So for me, one of the greatest things that I will say that helped me with my mental health is my relationship with God. Uh, I had a relationship before I went in. Uh, that being in that environment, that was the place I could go to have peace and to have joy. That was the place where I could allow myself to submerge myself into being able to have something to hold on to, grasp to, that I could build upon each and every day. So that became a big part of my spiritual walk. You know, uh, Make no bones about it. God's hand was on me in prison. I didn't really have any major situations. Few scuffles, few minor things, but I didn't have any major situations. And give Him the glory. And so when I got back out, I just wanted to make sure I didn't fall into that norm that they say when you holding on to the Bible. When you get out, you let it go. I
Right.
developed that relationship that I knew that even when I get out, I was going to need Him even more. And
Mhm.
so that was my peace. That was my joy. It wasn't a place of hiding. It was a place for me of living. Um,
Mhm.
and so that
Mhm.
played a major part. But I want to talk about that compartmentalizing because one of the things about trauma, when trauma's left untreated, uh, trauma gets in DNA. We can get out and have children and send that same trauma from their prison experience right down to the next generation.
Right.
And so
And then
it's
that's
good.
that whole cycle again. That whole cycle again that
Right,
happens because of some untreated. Because I mean, it's actually a rewiring of our brain when you think about the trauma. Instead of dealing with it in a healthy way, we often turn to unhealthy habits that become part of our character, and
right,
those unhealthy habits can't be passed along. You start putting yourself in more dangerous environments. For instance, like with prison, when it comes to mental health, for me, um, I was so focused on finding myself in the whole prison process, and I studied the Bible. I even started studying with some of the Islamic uh, faith based organizations there. I was just searching for myself. And what I found myself in dealing with it, I actually adopted, and this is sad to say, but I adopted that old saying, when in Rome, do what the Romans do. But not all the way. Let me just point that out. I was like,
right,
I'm here, I need to survive. And especially after I was denied, released, I was like, okay, if I were to sell drugs, oh, what are they gonna do? Lock me up? If I
right,
were to do this, I mean, what's the worst they could do? Lock me up,
right,
But then there was always that teetering, that, and this is what I don't know if you probably can relate to this. It's like this middle of the road thing that you got to do in prison. A lot of people may know this. It's like how they say black people have to have two voices.
right,
Wherein I needed to be able to live with the inmates, my fellow inmates. I need to be able to live with them, get their
right,
respect, earn their respect. I needed to be there, but I also needed to let the administration know that, hey, I'm not with no trouble. Don't
right,
you don't have to worry about me doing this. If you come to me, I'm gonna be honest with you. Now, on the flip side, does that make you, you can't be too friendly with the
right,
inmates, and you can't be too friendly with the officers. So it's like that fine line. I found myself, battling or tiptoeing that line all the way through prison. And then, sometimes it depending on the situation. It depended on the situation wherein, you know, I can never I can say this. I have never told on anyone in prison. I can say that. I can say that.
yeah. I
Now
can too.
I've had conversations with people and I'll let them know, especially like in those therapeutic environments, that stuff will break it down. But I have always been able to um somehow make it like a concern, not necessarily like this is whatever they doing, because I got to live with these people. I'm not gonna tell
No
on
doubt.
nobody.
No doubt.
Live with these people. I have to sleep in here. Are you nuts? Are you freaking nuts? I'm not gonna do that. You know. If anything, I would tell the inmate, hey, look, they come to shake down, so y'all need to get right. You know what I mean? I think
Right,
they down here like that call on the street, like whoop whoop, 12 right down the street, like one of those things. But it's always that finding. Then that fine line, and what's important is for you to find balance in that. I mean, that takes a toll on your mental health. I mean, it can be one of those things that you um, um, have those post traumatic stress type of deals behind, because you go to sleep. How can you comfortably sleep in a cell or in your bunk or in your dorm when you have offended or disrespected, or someone thinks you're doing this or doing that? Like, you can't be in protective custody all your life, you know,
Right.
and
Right.
that can be stressful for just laying there. You know, you don't want to be considered what these call is friendly. You want to be quote unquote friendly, but you ain't want to be looked at as no badass either. It's like that
No,
line. So I don't know what you
you're
think
right.
about. Okay, go ahead.
No, I was agreeing with you. You have to, you know, way prison is you stay authentic to who you are. You
Right.
know, I think a lot of people have problems when they move outside of those norms, trying to be
Mm-hmm.
something that they're not. You know, birds of a feather flock together. If this ain't, you know, your cup of tea, then you just stay out them lanes, stay to
Stay out
yourself.
the lanes.
Uh, you know, even being over, I had a situation where me and a guy got into it over really nothing, and they separated us before it really jumped off.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a couple of days later, I'm in my rack. I don't go to breakfast. So he
Mm-hmm.
come in, I'm asleep. Look, I'm knocked out, and he up the knife. So
Mm-hmm.
when he up the knife, I already got the lock in the sock, right?
Oh.
But the good thing about it is he just wanted to let me know that he could if he wanted to. Now, the sad part about it was somebody I dealt with, because you know how the prison code go. You
Yeah.
know, certain things happen, uh, and nothing came of it. But
Mm-hmm.
that was just a perfect example of
Mm-hmm.
how, at any given time,
Mm-hmm.
I've seen hits put out on people. As a matter of
Mm-hmm.
fact, I remember Saturday morning after chow, everybody in their rack Saturday morning. Uh, Officers opened the door. The
Yep.
guy come in from another dorm. He snatched a dude out the rack and started beating him. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden, somebody said, "Psst, that's the wrong one."
Damn. Well, damn.
So look,
Damn. I
so
mean, I
look,
ain't laughing, bro, but come on,
look,
man. God, that's
look. But look, that's the environment. Look here. So when you talk about that middle of the road, that middle of the road consists of a whole lot of stuff,
a
because
whole lot.
you in an environment where if you think it, you got to follow through with it. And
Right.
the whole
Right.
thing is to try to live the way you don't, if you're trying to go home, you got to
Yeah.
keep it on the forefront. But at the same time, you don't know if a situation may present itself where, it is what it is.
Yeah, I was in a couple of situations like that, because I mean, people, people talk, man, and I always kept my ear to the street. And so there were times when, oh, they said this, they called me by my little prison name or whatever. Like, they said this about this, and I'll say, no, they ain't how it would go down. So I was always that guy that I would dip it in the bud. I wouldn't let nothing grow in the steam. I wouldn't let it go by and say, well, it'll just pass over, or he don't know what he's talking about. I'm like, what? He said what? And I'll just go confront people. I'm like, no, don't do that.
Right,
Don't do that.
right. Don't let
I
it
don't,
linger.
right. I don't let it linger. I never let it linger. And I can remember one time it was a guy, he had just came, Max, he was supposed to have been like this badass. He was just a badass, and I'm like, he had asked me to, you know, connected with some, people dealt with factions. Certain people didn't deal with others, but they would use people to get to them. And so, yeah, he's like, can you talk to this group or this person for me and see if he'll do this for me? I can't mess with him because I think it was something like with the brother, or, they had some drama or beef that was long standing. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. I'll go check it, but you got to be straight up because now I'm in the middle of it. You know what I mean?
Right,
I forgot what
right,
year it was, what it was, but at any rate, the guy that was the badass had told someone else, like, oh, well, I don't know about him. I don't think you should use him. You know, I don't like his reputation. I don't. And he didn't even know me. He just got there, and I guess through his dealings with um, how you meet one, you'll met them all, right? You meet one person, you'll met them all, right? You see so many people come through those prisons, like, oh, I can see that character. You become instantly able to read or understand like their angle. And so
right,
they told me about it. You know, I had heard he was a badass, but I mean, I wasn't studying that stuff. I mean, what they gonna do? Lock me up? What they gonna do? They gonna lock me up? And so I went to the dorm, and this dude was ready. I don't know how. I don't know if he had a bird or something that told him that I was coming, but he was ready. Like he was standing at the door, and I was standing, we're coming in the door, and he was already in his box, like in his box. Like I was like, hold on, brother, we don't got to do all that. He was going for his knife, his shank or whatever. I'm like, we ain't got to do all that. I need to talk to you though. You know what I'm saying? And in my heart, I mean, thinking back, that could have been the enemy, like right then, because this dude was
right,
going. He know I had heard about what had been said, and here it is. I'm, what they call stepping down, right? I'm gonna step down on him for what he said or whatever. And for me, it wasn't even like that. I just wanted to get some clarification. You can have your PTSD, mental health, living ass over there. I just want to straighten it out. You know what I mean? But dealing with those types of people, you had to have a bit of courage when it came to protecting yourself and protecting your reputation. And I think that kind of has carried over. Like in the beginning of the podcast, you was talking about how your supervisor, right? Um, it's like, we have a healthy fear. No, you're not going to disrespect me. You know, you're going to hold my reputation up higher than me because you're going to be representing me when I'm not around you. And what you say, if it get back to me and it's not like what I believe or the standard that I hold in myself, I'm coming to check you. You know what I mean?
right.
So it definitely makes you tough. Like you
It,
come out
it,
here, people look at you like you crazy as hell.
well, I let them know. What you gonna do? Eat me? I didn't stood before 12 years twice, so that's a total different. So what you talking about today?
Yeah, yeah.
I was thinking when you was talking. When I first got to prison, it was a guy. I slept on top. He slept on bottom, and he was getting yeast out of the kitchen for the julep, right?
Right, right, right.
So I guess somebody told on him. I hadn't been in the camp for maybe 2, 3 days, and so they shook down. So they
Mm.
go in the bag and get the yeast. First thing he hollers, "Mine." So
Oh no.
I dropped down. No, it ain't mine, bro. That's yours. You gonna. So they snatched him up, took him to the office, and we went to chow. Come back. So I'm coming to confront him because I'm new. I got to go. I can't let you just sit. I got to let you know you can't do this. So he
Don't
probably
create the
had,
narrative.
look, he had about a 16-inch nice, he had a nice hickey on him. But at that point, by the time he pulled it out, I was already on go level on just letting him know, don't do that. And
Don't
got to
do
go ahead
that.
and get another rack. We can't sleep together. You might well go
I
ahead
know.
on. And
I'm
so my
telling you.
whole point in saying is there are situations that will present themselves that
Mm,
basically have nothing to do with you, but have something
right,
to do with the environment.
right.
And, for all those who may be listening, whatever you're doing, you don't want to put yourself in them situations. Because, like I know some guys that came in at 18 years old with 2-year sentences and wind up doing 25 before they got out, who wind up
Yeah,
catching a murder case. And that,
yeah.
that is very easy. Even for us working in the drug dorm, I can remember when I didn't know it at the time, they was hiding all the dope in the drug dorm. You know,
Yeah, that was the safest place.
no doubt. So listen, but who on the forefront? I'm running the drug dorm. So one of the crazy situations is I think the Crips had they no it was the yeah it was the Crips or the Bloods, one of them. They hiding it in there, and the guy they give it to says somebody then stole it. So look, this was a nice quantity. So they saying, look, we coming up in there, and if Mac Daniels says something, we're gonna have to handle him too. Well, you know, the politics, ain't nothing I can say, but
yeah,
that still puts you in the mix.
yeah. I
You
would have
know,
stood up at the front of the dorm. Was like, if y'all got these folks shit, y'all need to give back to
well, here the
them.
deal. No, the crazy thing was the dude they gave it to, he robbed him.
Okay.
Look,
Oh
he robbed.
man.
Yeah, yeah. And so you know the game go many different ways, but what I am saying is you know that's pressure that could be applied just because you're in the vicinity. You don't have to be a part of something.
Right. Right.
You know, and even trying to do the right thing, a lot of times you still find yourself in certain situations. You
Exactly.
know, and so you know all of that compounds what we talking about PTSD because even though you know we thank God those a lot of those situations didn't turn out to be to our detriment or getting us more time or still in prison,
Hmm.
but at the same time they took us to some mind frames. They took
They
us to
did.
some places in our anxiety, in our adrenaline, being raised to some areas because you know, like I know those environments. If you think it, you got to follow through. Ain't no time to contemplate because when it comes, it comes. And
Yeah,
you know,
and
I just
it could be your life. It could be your life.
no doubt, no
Um,
doubt. That's what I'm saying.
all right. So guys, I want to thank you guys for joining us for this important discussion. Let me see right here. Got just a little bit of feedback. Thank you for joining us for the this important discussion on the effects of PTSD after incarceration. I know we kind of went down through there talking about some of the things that we have been through, but that uh, was what built us to who we are today. And so when we're out, we kind of brought some of those stories, brought that lifestyle or how we were living out here on the forefront. So we've heard some powerful stories and insights that underscore the need for compassion and understanding in our communities. I mean, if you are someone or someone you know is struggling, please reach out to the resources that we talked about in our show tonight. Go out and encourage them to do some push-ups, encourage them to join a self-help group, and encourage them to go to church to pray or find some type of spiritual awakening, because change is always possible. And by raising awareness, we can help pave the way for healing and reintegration. All right, so I want you guys to stay tuned for our next episode, where we're going to go into another topic that is going to break the stigma and change the narrative of the whole post-incarceration process. Until then, take care and be kind to one another.
Hey.